We started this discussion in our, well, it was briefly in our first session, and then in our second session. I'd just like to return to the ideas that, and review briefly the ideas we've discussed already. We've mentioned that in this project and in your work generally as teachers, we assess for a range of different reasons. We assess and report for all sorts of different reasons. One of the ways in which I'm wanting to look at assessment is in terms of where does the assessment tell me where to go next? So if I give students some tasks, how do I know where to go next? With our high reliability literacy teaching procedures approach, we're really focusing on the actions people need to use in order to read more effectively. So our focus, or my focus at least, is on the actions the students need to learn to use. Now, we've said that some students might use particular actions when I scaffold them, and some students might be able to use those actions automatically, independently. And since I want all of my students to be as independent as possible in how they use the strategies, I need to know where they are at any point in relation to that. So the way I'm looking at using something like NAPLAN data might be slightly different from the way other people are using it. When we look at the item analysis, and this is the item analysis for a particular school at grade 3, you can see what the state level of performance was and what the performance of the school was. And I've also included on this the proportion of the children who answered incorrectly, indicating which item they chose incorrectly. Because if we've, say, got a quarter of the kids in the school choosing item B incorrectly, then there may well be some confusion in the grade 3 groups about that particular reading aspect. Or here we've got, with item number 6, we've got a third of the children. The school achieved an accuracy level of 50%, and the state was 73%, and a third of those who answered incorrectly chose item A. And so of the 50%, we've got, we've got about 15% or 18% doing something wrong with A.
John, can I ask a question about the alternative answers?
Yep.
Just came to mind. Are they deliberately designed as distractors, or are they designed in themselves to elicit some sort of information about the type of thinking that the students are doing?
I've got no idea. I don't know, Mark. We need to know the basis. We didn't know how they were designed. If I know when I used to teach Year 11 chemistry, if I were going to give my class a multiple choice test, I'd give the kids typical stems before I gave them the test, and I'd get all the incorrect responses. And if 4 or 5 kids showed the same incorrect response, I'd structure up an alternative to assess that, because I'd want to know that. I want to be able to use the data for moving forward. So I would design tests along those lines. And actually, with some of these, when you analyse them in the way that I'm going to suggest, you can actually see that pattern coming out. Now, the sort of data you get back from NAPLAN and also from the online testing are descriptors like this, don't you? You get descriptors like that. Now, And it's reasonable to say that's how NAPLAN is actually seeing reading. That's what they're believing reading is like. Reading involves locating directly stated information in a text, making links between directly stated ideas in a text. Now that's what they're seeing reading is. If that's what they're describing, that's what they believe each item is doing. And one would hope that they'd put items on the test that they thought measured reading. Am I making sense? Well, what I'm saying is that if they're stating these things, if they're saying that item 3 assesses kids' ability to make links between directly stated ideas in the text, they've done it because they think it's an important reading outcome. Now, you don't have to look very hard into this data to see that, for example, with item number, say, 3, make links between directly stated ideas in the text, 96% of the kids in the state could answer that correctly. Whereas, make links for number 5, make links between directly stated ideas in the text, 69% of the kids in the state can do it correctly. So, if I say, let me try to teach kids to make links between directly stated ideas in the text, if all I do is focus on that, I'm not going to get very far. And in fact, you'd even question whether or not that is a useful measure of what it was that children were doing. And so what we've been looking at is actually trying to unpack these reading comprehending actions. And so with groups of teachers, in the Bairnsdale network, we've been doing what we're going to do here, where we look at some texts, some NAPLAN text, we look at the questions, and you say for each question, which aspects of the high reliability strategies do you need to use to get the outcome? So what will you do? And in fact, you'll see with that grade 3 one in year 5, the information was separated and you needed to be able to visualise the text and then act on your image in order to answer the question. So what I'm pushing is that with your colleagues, when you get your NAPLAN data back, you actually might want to lead a discussion, just a half hour, part of a staff meeting, where the staff actually tune into this. So the dialogue about literacy isn't about this, but it is about this. Is that okay? And so if we go through it and have a go at doing it, and see, well, when you do that, you can see, number 2, they had to summarise and match the main characters in a paragraph. So they were within one paragraph. And yet here, Alistair, summarise 2 paragraphs, identify the main ideas, and then link them. And so you were really talking about 2 different paragraphs to get the same outcomes. So, are there any questions about this, first of all? If you were wanting to describe the students' reading outcomes, you wouldn't really need to do this. If you were just wanting to say, where is my class now in terms of their reading outcomes, this could be sufficient. Or in fact, even the number could be